Hello, and welcome to Richie Nix. This is episode 3 of Media Talks, and since it's December, we are discussing a holiday movie. I'll be talking about The Muppet Christmas Carol. We'll be talking about how it's actually, surprisingly, one of the most faithful and, in my opinion, best adaptations of the novel. There are a lot of versions of A Christmas Carol. There are a lot of movie versions of A Christmas Carol. There are a lot of old ones that I'm sure a lot of people aren't aware of. There are the Jim Carrey one. I get a lot of mixed reviews on, from what I've been seeing. Some people are saying, don't even mention that one. Others are saying that's my favorite, so I don't really know what to make of that. I only saw the Jim Carrey one once, way back when it was new, and that was over a decade ago. That one came out in 2009. But anyway, The Muppet Christmas Carol came out in 1992. It is the first, it is the first theatrical Muppet movie in 8 years at that point in time. The previous one being Muppets Take Manhattan. And it was also the first Muppet movie made after the death of Jim Henson and actually another Muppeteer, Richard Hunt. When thinking about this movie, The Muppet Christmas Carol, I don't even know I don't even know where to go with this. So my family, pretty big fans of the Muppets. I wouldn't say huge fans, really. I know people can be more fanatic than we are, but we're big fans of the Muppets. I grew up with the Muppets, so I might have a little more of a nostalgia factor than a lot of people when it comes to reviewing these kinds of movies. But I also know there were people who didn't grow up with the Muppets who still appreciate Muppet media, like this movie and Treasure Island, being exposed to it for the first time as adults. And in talking to people who are basically casual fans of the Muppets, the music of The Muppet Christmas Carol is probably one of the biggest and most important parts of the movie, what they find the most entertaining or interesting. So let's start talking about the movie itself by talking about the music, and in chronological order, the overture, the intro to the movie, the opening credits, and the overture, the music that contains several melodies from the movie, but also from actual Christmas songs. So, like, the overture is very effective in conveying the emotion of the movie. It contains both movie original songs, but all real Christmas songs such as Good King Wenceslas and Hark the Herald Angels Sing, specifically. That I noticed. But it doesn't contain any of the sadder, let's say, music. When Love Is Gone, that melody is not in the overture. We're Marley and Marley, that melody is not in the overture. It sticks to the regular, the main, how's it pronounced? Leitmotifs from the original score, in addition to the musical cues, such as the song from the Ghost of Christmas Present and whatnot. Thankful Heart, that one. So in regards to the actual Christmas music that was used, for context, the book was released in December of 1843, and the songs used are from the basic time period. Hark the Herald Angels Sing is from 1840, so it would have actually existed at the time of the book's release. And Good King Wenceslas is from 1853, a decade after, so it would be very soonly relevant to the story after its existence, but not for 10 years after its existence. And then in regards to the score and the songs, what makes Christmas music sound like Christmas music? Other than sleigh bells, that's the immediate, obvious answer. Sleigh bells automatically makes it sound like it's Christmas or winter. But chimes, brass instruments, trumpet and French horn and euphonium and stuff. and choirs. So in regards to like those things that make it sound like Christmas music, most of the songs are either sung exclusively by choirs of characters in the story, or include at least a little choir work, like backup vocals. So the introduction to Scrooge's song is an example of the former, and Marley and Marley is an example of the latter. The importance of brass is noted throughout the score. The French horn and the trumpet, they really seem to be the most heavily used instruments in the orchestration of the music. I will admit that I may be mistaking some of the French horn lines as being French horn when they're actually like a euphonium instead. But it's the general warmth of those instruments when even in the upper register of the instrument that is most relevant to their use in the score. Trumpet is bright, contrarily. Some people say that the importance of brass in Christmas music is directly related to the importance of brass in religious contexts. Brass bands are traditionally important in those kinds of contexts, within the literal texts themselves, as well as in practices. Might have to do with the portability of the instrument. I don't like saying that now that I've said it. But the brass family's particular ability to be both bright and fun, as well as dark and somber, it probably really adds to their use in the orchestration. Let's think of the Nutcracker, Tchaikovsky. Bum 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 bum. It's all brass. Scrooge's song is a much better introduction than the typical I Want song. Very typical of Disney, and Muppets was Disney at that point. Very effective character introduction, and better than having that introduction come from the character themselves, like in the I Want songs. It's not like Scrooge is one who would sing about himself anyway, and who would want to listen to a guy sing about being a greedy dick, you know? It's better to hear it coming from the cast. And even the mean songs like that, like the Scrooge song and the Marley and Marley songs, the scary song, quote unquote, they're also upbeat and fun. The whole movie is just jovial. Gonzo being cast as Charles Dickens and using actual book quotes, it's just great. And that fact is pretty universally acknowledged as what makes it one of the most faithful adaptations of the story. Apparently, the written prose and structure of the book is very well reflected by Gonzo narrating as Dickens, and Rizzo accompanying him and disbelieving him all along the way. Gonzo claims to be Dickens himself and sticks by Rizzo's side, much as Dickens, interpreted to be the narrator of the novel, says that he is at the reader's elbow. Even Rizzo's disbelief in Gonzo is a reflection of the narrative device in the novel, given that it's written conversationally as if the reader is doubting the things he's narrating while narrating, particularly at the beginning. Brian Henson, the director, son of Jim Henson, he himself calls the movie one of the most faithful adaptations of the story, thanks to decisions like that, specifically the casting of Gonzo, being done by Jerry Jewell, noting that they intentionally kept a lot of the original Dickens prose and quotes since it seemed to fit the Muppet sense so well, like the sense, like just like their air, their sense of humor, the way they flow. Before the writer Jerry Jewell cast Gonzo as Charles Dickens narrating, he was originally going to be Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, and he was going to be like a hooded Gonzo. I think Brian Henson said Scooter was going to be Ghost of Christmas Past, but I'm glad they changed to that. The Ghost of Christmas Past, though, that they used, creepy AF. Creepy AF. But not nearly as creepy as the book description. The way it's described in the book, however, is like it's just impossible to translate to the screen. It's like constantly changing shape, and at some point it has like its face is like reflective of like literally everyone that it had shown to Scrooge all at once. Like, how are you gonna make that in a movie, especially movies made before now? But fun fact, in regards to that creepy ghost, her effects were created by filming the puppet in water. It seems kind of obvious, but they were originally using baby oil. However, it was too expensive to buy in such quantities, and it was too difficult to keep clean, so they basically only used the oil, which was the original idea, once, and then they just switched to water. The song sung by the Ghost of Christmas Present, It Feels Like Christmas, is the most Christmassy song in the entire movie, not just because it has jingle bells. It's actually even more Christmassy than some actual Christmas songs. It's always in my Christmas playlists. It gets the message across so well, and it makes you feel like you want to join in, just like, Scrooge joins in, starts dancing with them. I don't know, he's just, again, the jovialness of the movie. It's so happy and fun. And then Tiny Tim. The concept of Tiny Tim hits so much harder now as an adult, and even more so as a parent. And giving the Cratchit family a song that Tiny Tim starts was a great way to give them and him more depth and more character than other renditions of the story, where they're just like, hey, remember this guy? He's sad. The only other version of A Christmas Carol that I'm really familiar with is the Mickey one. It's only like half an hour, so they really rushed through everything, and learning about the Cratchit family is so much less involved than this. One thing I asked myself while watching it this time was, why do the ghosts appear at 1, and then 2, and then 12? Marley in the book originally told Scrooge that it would take 3 nights of hauntings, 3 nights in a row, haunted by one ghost each night. But then that's not what happens, and that's where the lines that Scrooge exclaims on Christmas morning is that, oh, it was only one night, and, oh, of course it was only one night, like the spirits can do anything. So that's why Scrooge was surprised it was only one night that it occurred, but that gets left out in almost all of the adaptations. Scrooge, after being told that he would be visited by 3 different ghosts on 3 separate occasions in the same night, he then asks Marley's, why can't he just get it all over with at once? Apparently that kind of question is asked, and also it makes more sense when he's told it's going to be 3 separate nights all at midnight. So, but it's just weird that it's 1, 2, 12. They should have just did 1, 2, 3. I don't know if it was retained instead of making it 3 a.m. But I guess it's just another little thing about the original book, kind of like shining through in this movie. The lyrical reprise of When Love Is Gone, like the more direct, I guess it's a reprise, it's a different song, technically. The Love We Found, it is definitely much weaker, and it feels like out of place without the song When Love Is Gone being included. My family, we grew up with the VHS that had the song, so we always knew about the song. I watched it on Disney Plus for this. It's a version that does not include the song. So if it feels, it definitely changes how it feels not being in the movie, but it's not entirely irrelevant because they do use the melody of it in the score around that scene. It feels like Christmas is perfect for the credits, but When Love Is Gone is not, in my opinion. I have found that there's a much higher opinion of that song in the fandom than in my personal opinion. I asked myself while watching, why on earth is it in the credits if it's not in the movie? I can't find an answer to that specifically, and therefore I assume it's simply because it was already recorded, and as it turns out, both Henson and Paul Williams, who wrote the songs, really liked that song and wanted to keep it in, but it wasn't up to them. And if you liked this, you should read the book, is the perfect final line for a book adaptation of any kind. It's the best last line of the movie that it could be. But so as I said earlier, it's not just the first film without Jim Henson, but it's the first Muppet film in general in about 8 years since Muppet Takes Manhattan. It's dedicated not only to Jim Henson, but also Richard Hunt, who was another original Muppeteer. He did Scooter, Statler, Janice, Beaker, Sweetums. Sweetums is the giant, brown guy. like the full human in a suit dude. He like picks up the car in the original movie. That's his name is Sweetums. In Muppet Treasure Island, he's the guy who's like, "Are you kidding? I love you guys." When Kermit the Frog, when Bob Cratchit watches a shooting star at the end of his song, that's like a direct homage to Jim Henson and Kermit watching a shooting star in the original Muppet movie. Ralph not being used as a Muppet in the cast and only having a short cameo at Fozziwig's. The reason behind, and the fact that he wasn't used for a very long time until the Muppets reboot with Jason Segel, was that he was Jim Henson's favorite. So they just kind of like retired him for a while. They intentionally didn't recast him with another Muppeteer, and they still wanted to include him, and that's why they show him sitting at the piano in the band. But that's why he didn't get used as a character for a long time. It's also interesting and kind of like a weird kind of coincidental kind of thing to note that the songwriter Paul Williams was working through recovery from addiction, and just 2 months after he got sober, Jim Henson died. And let's see. As I said, Jeffrey Katzenberg was the reason When Love Is Gone got cut. He was an executive at Disney, and I think the wording would be advised Henson to cut it. He noted how the kids in the audiences of testings were reacting and behaving, and called them antsy and whatnot during the song, and he convinced Brian Henson to cut it out. And Brian Henson was apparently like kind of upset about it to a degree. I don't know how like emotional he was over it, but he was the person to inform Belle's actress, Meredith Braun, of the cut from the film. He was very apologetic and wanted to make it known that it wasn't his decision. And both Henson and Williams loved the song and the scene. That's why I think that it was still included in the credits, and seemed to come out of nowhere without it as a scene in the movie. Even when they were trying to... so like the VHS copies of the movie have the scene in it. The DVDs and the Blu-rays don't. They were so after, let's see, they've tried to put the scene back into the movie in later editions, and they never did because it just didn't look like it fit. Henson described it as no matter how hard we tried, it never looked good enough. Something to do with like not being able to edit it into looking like it was actually part of the movie. So like I said, yeah, on the VHS, that's what we had growing up. So we were familiar with the song and the scene, and we actually always disliked it and skipped it. We fast-forwarded it through it, and no one else that knew the movie seemed to know that it existed. My younger sister, Katie, who was on the Bob's Burgers podcast, she said that there was a time when the movie was on at like a party or some sort of social gathering that she was a part of, and she made some disparaging comment about that song, and literally no one around her knew what she was talking about, basically didn't believe her. The fact that it was slow and sad, which is, like a complaint that Katzenberg had about it, I always thought that it kind of looked out of place myself, like the set. I don't know. And the way Belle's actress, Meredith Braun, the way she holds her mouth when she's holding out long notes, which I've noticed that no one else seems to complain about, I find it very weird. And we always disliked it. We would always fast forward through it because it was a VHS and you couldn't just skip it. So we just watched it in fast without audio. It seems to get a lot of praise on the internet from what I've seen and the little amount of research that I've done. I honestly don't understand why I don't like that song, but whatever. There are other missing songs from the movie. Bunsen and Beaker had a song. Sam the Eagle had a song. I don't see anybody complaining about their, lack of inclusivity in the movie. They appear on the official soundtrack, though. Henson mentions the songs in his commentary of the movie. It says nothing about filming any sequences for them. So it sounds like they were never really included, so they weren't actually cut, but they are missing because they're on the official soundtrack. People I've talked to about this movie before recording this say that the musical aspect of the movie is really what helps both tell and carry the story. My friend Serta saying that the songs really added to the movie rather than distract or hinder or like be a waste of time. They really added to the movie, and I have to agree. Like all the ones that are in the version on Disney Plus currently at the time of recording, December 2020. Yes, I would have to agree. And there was an article that my sister sent me. It points out. Oh, I didn't even say what it was. This article that my sister sent me called "A Grand Yuletide Theory: The Muppet Christmas Carol is the best adaptation of A Christmas Carol," written by Ethan Warren. They're very specific in pointing out that The Muppet Christmas Carol is the only adaptation to feature Charles Dickens as a character, which, as I pointed out earlier, the book seems to be narrated by him. So having this version be the only version where like that actually happens for you as an audience member is good. Especially when trying to say that it is the especially when trying to say that it is the most faithful adaptation. Now, an example of a direct quote that Gonzo uses during the Scrooge song, he said, "Scrooge liked the cold. He was hard and sharp as a flint, secret and self-contained, as solitary as an oyster." So keeping a representation of Dickens's language alive in the movie helps make it one of the most faithful adaptations of the story. The article's point that Kermit the Frog is the best Bob Cratchit is pretty good. I have to say Steve Whitmire is really good Kermit the Frog. It goes on to compare the cast of the Muppet Christmas Carol to Mickey's Christmas Carol, comparing the character of Kermit as a decent guy versus Mickey as the ultimate good guy, and how that plays into like the character and character development of Bob Cratchit. The use of Statler and Waldorf as Marley and Marley instead of Goofy as Marley, like Goofy being the guy saying, if you don't get good, like you're gonna be a spooky ghost like me and be covered in chains and whatnot. It doesn't work as well coming from Goof. A direct quote being, "Niceness can be faked, but decency must be proven. And this quality serves as a magnetic pull for anyone, be they human or frog, to find their way back to where surface-level niceness fails." Then saying that as long as this isn't your first encounter with the Muppets, like it's a part of Kermit's character that you can apply to this movie, giving it extra context. That was another episode of Media Talks. It was about The Muppet Christmas Carol. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at RichieNixYT. Happy holidays, everybody. No matter what you celebrate, happy holidays. I'll see you down in the comments.